something beautiful is on its way to you. This is the experience of a lifetime, my dear friend. You want to give yourself this at all costs to your ego, your pride, and your fears. Love, it's everywhere. It's beautiful. It lives within. It doesn't need to be created. It is already there for you. We've hiked down 3 canyons, and here we are. Let's shoot it, baby. I feel the funky chicken, the funky Messiah. Yeah! Search for yourself on your own. Go within yourself. Find it within your breath, within your very spirit. Mrs. Nixon is done. Now I want to do a little magic trick. A spiritual path brings us to a place in our life where we discover the diamond and we learn how to pull it out of the mud. It's all very interesting. For me, it started many years ago when I was a kid, the path that is. I remember when I was about 11 years old, 12 years old. I was sitting in a movie watching Judah Ben-Hur. And as I sat there watching this movie, there was at the end where after the crucifixion, Judah walks up to his fiancée and she can tell there has been a profound change in Judah. And she looks at him and he said, even at the end, and she said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And she looked at him and said, "Even then?" And he said, "Yes, even then." Well, I remember as a child just bursting out into tears. And those words, "We know not what we do," penetrated very deeply in me. I was haunted by those words. And I have been haunted by those words all these years in my life. Even now as I talk to you about it, it's difficult. What a thing to say, we know not what we do. What are we doing with our life? What are you doing with yours? I'm sure you have a lot of answers. Most of the students and people I talk to have all sorts of philosophies and ideas about what a meaningful life is. But what I want to talk to you about in this particular series is our violence. We live our life very violently, and the aspect of our violence goes into the subtle. One of the first things I teach students when they come to me for meditation classes is to observe their anger. And I always tell them that the idea of anger has nothing to do with some profound sense of temper bursts. It has to do with something else. I always ask them on a scale between 1 and 10, 10 being the most, 1 being the least, how angry are you? If I were to define anger as unresolved hurt, pain, and sorrow. Well, if you look at your life, what level are you at? I'm sure a lot of you would be thinking, oh, I'm a 4, I'm a 5, I'm a 2, I'm a 1. Our whole life is based on pain. And our whole life is about anger and a certain form of violence. And I describe violence or define it as that aspect within me where I am devoid of my own spirit, where I am looking at hatred or violence to move situations or control situations in my life. This is not the way of the practice of love. We know not what we do and the violence we do, even to our own children. Let me give you an example of how violent we've been to our children. Did your parents ever try to get you to behave or do the right thing through compassion and love? Or did they offer you that wonderful threat that parents do? Don't make me angry at you. It's always the threat of violence. Did your parents ever look at you and say, hey, don't make me loving? Gregory, don't make me loving at you, because if I'm loving and forgiving and compassionate of you, how are you going to manipulate me? We use violence as a way to get what we want. Clothes, the way kids are wearing their clothes, tattoos, piercings, music, rap. I mean, if you begin to look at it, Even our comedy is violent, has been for many years. I often watch the Three Stooges and wonder what's so funny about hitting each other all the time, smacking each other up outside the head. If it happened to you, you would make a lawsuit about it. You'd probably take them to court, yet you'd laugh at it on the screen and think it was real funny. What's that say about me when I'm laughing at violence? Buddha once said, "Why are you laughing? Your hair's on fire." We laugh at the oddest things in this life, don't we? We really don't understand our personal violence and what it means to be personally violent. We think in terms of violence as being something overt that we do, but the most dangerous violence there is in life is the subtle violence that's going on inside of you and me right now. It is the way we think. It is our psychology. It is our ecology on the inside, and it is the way we go about our life. The way you are listening to me, even in this moment, is based on a certain level of violence. How can you hear me? How do you understand me but through the idea of right and wrong, good and bad? And those ideas, which are the only two ideas most human beings have in the course of their whole life, becomes the conflict of their living and becomes everything that they believe in and think about all day long. What should I do that's right? What should I do that's wrong? What should I do about this? What should I do about that? It's all based on a certain level of inner violence that nobody wants to admit that they have. If you look at how you eat, how you listen, how you go about even taking a walk, how you give, how you receive, all of these things are sacred. We haven't been taught the most important thing in life, and that is how to live our life. We educate our children, we tell them what to believe in, we tell them what not to believe in. We go out into the world and we think politics and religion is more important than life itself, and we build a philosophy and a religion around the politics and the ideas of right and wrong, our conflict and our violence. And the more we do this, the more we find that there is wars and rumors of wars, there's difficulties. People are neurotic. We're all at a hidden level of depression that we don't really want to admit that we have. And that's the saddest aspect of all of this. So I'm sure you don't think you're very angry. You know, I find this all the time with people. Well, they say, well, I'm not angry. I couldn't possibly be. You know, I've seen little 80-year-old women just blow up when they get angry about something, just the smallest detail, passive-aggressive. We're all very passive-aggressive. Let's talk about what makes us angry. What is the source of my violence? As the years have gone on, I reach less and less of you watching Aspire. Very few of you can really hear what I'm trying to say most of the time because your philosophy and your anger keep you from really hearing the message I'm trying to get across to you. I understand you don't really agree with a lot of what I say, but where does it all come from? Why can't you hear what I'm saying? Well, I bump up against your philosophy. I bump up against your idea of politics, your religious ideas. And you will vehemently hold on to those ideas, cursing me, telling me how bad or wrong I am for what I'm trying to offer you here on Aspire, simply because you enjoy the anger. You enjoy the violence. When was the last time you truly forgave someone? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. You're going to be hearing that a lot in this series. How do you know when you've forgiven? What is forgiveness? We're going to get into that as we go on. Let's talk about the source of our violence, though, the source of our anger. I'll tell you what it is. You were never given the chance as a person to find your own identity. You were never given the right to know who you were. Your parents were insistent that you become a good person. And whatever a good person is, they have to be good against bad. The only way you know anything that is good, as Lao Tzu said in the Tao, is through something that looks bad. Again, conflict. The first thing a parent has to instill in a child is a deep sense of inner conflict, guilt and shame. especially if you belong to a religious organization. That's what it's all about. How to guilt you and shame you into the religion. The church is well known for this. Most of the counseling I do is to help people try to understand that they don't have to know themselves through guilt and shame. You would think I was taking away their heart, like I was reaching into their body and ripping out their heart when I show them what religion, philosophy, and what Jesus meant when he said, your greatest enemies are those of your own household, your parents, your family, your friends, because they're the ones that say to you, hey, if you're going to be in our family, you got to hate the way we hate. You got to believe the way we believe. You got to live the way we want you to live. Then you're living right. What does living right mean? Who knows what right is? Jesus was once called good. A man comes to him and says, good master. And he said to him, there is none good but God. Even Jesus wanted to remove the idea that there was someone that was better than him or that he was greater than another to anyone who came to him. It isn't about being idolized. Our anger is based on the whole idea that we have ideas about ourselves, but no sense of reality about ourselves. You don't have any relationship with who you are. You make some minister or politician who stands before you your God. They tell you how to believe, what to believe in, how to think. Who's to say how you're to be? Aren't you good enough just the way you are? And if not, why? A lot of it has to do with how personally angry I am. The more angry I am, the more I will take on a philosophy and even a religion that will sustain my hatred and my anger, even though it's prejudiced and ugly, and make it look like it's sanctified by a religious organization, a political organization. There's all sorts of ways to justify and self-rationalize, as I like to call it, like homogenize our life, self-rationalize our whole life. How have you self-rationalized, homogenized your anger, your hatred? I'll bet you found many hundreds of ways to do it. Well, if he hadn't said this, she hadn't done that, if I hadn't heard this, who's to say? Why do I have any sense of anger in me, and why can I make you so angry so quick? No one ever said to me, Gregory, don't make me loving at you, as I said a little earlier to you. All I was told is, Gregory, don't make people angry at you. Don't make me angry at you. Why is it it's so easy to get your ire up? And do you not see that when you are in your anger, you are in the clutch of anyone who holds the key to your anger, who tells you why you should be angry, that you should be angry, that there is something wrong with your life and that you should be very angry about what's wrong in your life? Nothing's wrong in your life, dear friend. Everything in my life and yours is just the way it should be for now. And if we know what we're doing inside, we realize this.
Meditation helps learn to focus and quiet down a little bit on the inside. So even though the thoughts are still there and the emotions are still there, I don't necessarily react from those emotions. So when someone does something that's, say, rude or curt, I have an opportunity inside myself to go to my breath and go to a much quieter place inside and not listen to the emotions that would like to react to that person and be rude back or be vengeful. And meditation's really helped me learn to quiet down on the inside so that I have the opportunity to do that instead of just reacting quickly.
Everyone asks, why is meditation so boring? The reason it is boring is because we are overstimulated in this life. Just sitting and watching your breath go in and out, people find it boring. Why? We think too much. We are so proud of our thoughts. We always have to be stimulated. We have to have some music plugged in our ears, something to look at and be challenged by. It's because there is no confrontation in meditation. Watching your breath is about harmony. Our thoughts live in confrontation, in conflict with each other. Until a student or a person is ready to give up their conflict and no longer abide in the idea that they have to have conflicting ideas or some kind of heavy drama, they can't meditate. I have taught people for years meditation. I can look at them before they even walk in and sit down with me to work on it if they're going to make it or not. What is it that makes or breaks a student? Their relationship to their thoughts. How much conflict do they need? How much hate do they need? How much fear motivates them? That will determine how you meditate. So before you sit down and decide whether or not you want to practice meditation, you have to start looking at the idea of your own ideas. Are you so deeply moved by your mind? Do your thoughts so confront you and conflict with you that the only way to get your attention is through conflict? Meditation is about harmony and the willingness to let go of a thought despite our need for pain. So let's look at our passive aggressiveness, which is the ultimate form of our anger and our personal violence towards ourselves. And in this series, I'm going to go through a lot of the things where we work on forgiving ourselves and looking at ourselves from another point of view. But let's start with the whole idea of how do I garner your attention? How do I gain your respect? I have to say or do things that coincide with the idea of what you dislike or like. If I move against what you like, then I'm a bad person. If I move against what you dislike, I'm a good person. Who's to say what is good and bad, right and wrong? When you start looking at people's lives and you start looking at the things that we do to garner each other's affection and gratification, you can see we're building anger. It's our personal violence we're making out. We're making it bigger and bigger and bigger in ourselves. There's nothing bigger than the one who's most right about everything. And yet, we know not what we do. If you look at life, if you look at the world, you can see that, well, we've lost touch with love in every way, shape, and form. I'm not interested with my students about what's good and bad, right and wrong. What I try to show them, and what I'm trying to show you in this series, is everything's in its place. If I drop my judgments about what is good and bad, right and wrong, I come into a very important spot in my life where I come into acceptance. I've looked at a lot of aspects of my life, and if I look at them seriously, there were times when I thought I was dead on right, and I was absolutely right in the world. But you know something? I was doing so much damage to myself internally. I was doing so much damage to myself in my own personal self, in my proportion to love and compassion and forgiveness, that it was very difficult for me to recover. People would say, well, you had every right to do that or whatever. But you know what? It made it so much easier to go back to hatred. It made it so much easier to go back to gratifying myself through hatred that I really won the battle but lost the war. And that's what I see people doing when they're working on themselves. When I'm counseling with people, trying to help them, I'm trying to help them understand the goodness of their own nature. You have intrinsic goodness that lives inside you. People forget this goodness because they're so busy trying to cover up their goodness with their rightness. And rightness has no place in a spiritual practice or in our lives. You can be right about a lot of things in the world and so deeply self-destructive. Gathering the forces of yourself to become angry is easy. I can make you angry just like that. But to bring you to love, I can say everything that I know that is of a truth that would bring you to love. The Beatitudes, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path of Buddha. For all the years I've been on Aspire trying to help you, really, what good has it done? When I think about it, and I think about all the phone calls I get, for every one kind phone call that I'll get, maybe someone will say, hey, Greg, I'd like to, support you, or gee, Greg, I see what you're trying to do. I'll get 10 or 15 calls about people calling me names, saying, what are you doing? What right do you have to say these things? People are suspicious of anyone who goes against the grain of what they believe in. If I go against the grain of your beliefs, if I go against the ideas that you have conjured up inside yourself that make you right, you're suspicious of me. You never look at your own thoughts and go, maybe the way I think isn't the way it is. If you want to do something really interesting this week, doubt your thoughts. You look at all the thoughts you have and just go, well, I'm not going to invest in you, and I'm not going to invest in you. Don't invest in any thought of rightness. Don't invest in any thought of your own idea of, trying to gain some sort of support or profit from your ideas. Just let them drop like leaves falling from a tree. Just let them drop. Have no invested interest in any of them. Sit this week and maybe watch your breath. There's an old Zen story that I've always loved about the guy who spent years meditating. And finally, after 30 years, he comes down off his mountain. He thinks he's enlightened. Comes down off his mountain and he goes to the Kumela in India, where there are thousands and thousands of people standing around. And one guy accidentally steps on his foot. And the monk, who had been there 30 years meditating, thinking he had all the answers, goes into a rage about this guy being clumsy and stepping on his foot. And one of his students says, after 30 years of meditating, this is what you've come to? You know, just because you think you understand what I'm saying, just because you believe in what I'm saying, doesn't mean you understand what I'm saying. We know not what we do.
Greg is one of the most gentle men that I've ever met. His insights, his understanding, his compassion has no bounds.
The unconditional love that you feel just begins to grow and grow and grow until the next thing you know, you're engulfed in it.
Well, I get lots of emails due to my TV and my radio program, and I get lots of questions, and here's one I'd like to read to you. Dear Gregory, could you please tell me what the Bible has to do with your teachings? Well, I don't really do much with the Bible, folks. I'm not one of those Bible scholars, and I'm not very interested in sutras or Gitas or Qurans or Bibles or any of that. What I'm interested in is technique. How does a spiritual practice work in our life? Buddha, Jesus, Lao Tzu, all of the great masters gave us technique, how to work on ourselves. Now, that is an important thing. To spit out Bible verses and be a scholar, to me, doesn't seem to change many people's lives. It's just one more knowledge-based thing that we have in our heads that eventually we're going to have to let go of. The knowledge of the Bible or the Quran or the Gita or any of the other scriptures, well, it kind of helps in the sense of entertainment for the mind. But when it gets right down to the bare core living, it is my relationship with silence that is more important than anything else. If I do not have a relationship with my silence, deep silence inside, I have nothing going on in my life. No matter how you fill your brain up with words, it isn't going to change anything in your life. Most people live according to altered thoughts, and they try to alter their thoughts to make them positive or negative. It's all opinion and speculation. The only thing that is really important, like I say, is how you live from within yourself. If you live wisely on the inside of yourself, you're not going to be fooled by words or ideas. You'll want the direct experience of silence and love in your life. I'm really grateful you chose to be with us here on Aspire for our new programs, We Know Not What We Do. In this particular program, I wanted you to kind of feel what it is like in a serene environment to talk about a violent one. Where we were, it was so beautiful. The trees were immense. There was a deep silence in the woods. It was absolutely gorgeous. But the thing that I wanted you to understand in this, and the thing I still hope you carry with you as you go through your week, is to observe the violence of the world you live in and how it reinforces the violence that you have within yourself. If I am not careful on the inside of myself, I will start taking my environment and making it my inner world. You don't want to do that. In this world, as Jesus said, there will always be trials and tribulations. There will always be wars and rumors of wars. There always will be. Don't worry about that. What you want to do is meet everything with kindness and compassion. Before you do anything, begin to realize every single encounter you have with another human being, or whatever it is you're encountering in your life, it doesn't have to be a conflict. Everything happens the way it happens by divine rendezvous, as it were. You're here to have these experiences, and they mean something. Not one single experience in your life is trivial. You may like to think it is. You may think, well, I don't get it. I don't understand what that was about. It just seemed like it just happened. It didn't. You worked your whole life to be with that person in that moment at that time. And there was a message in it. How you do anything, the old Zen story goes, the old Zen saying, is how you do everything. So if you meet every given situation with a sense of trivia, then your whole life will be nothing but a series of trivial events. But if you meet every moment compassionately and lovingly, if you can meet every moment as though it's a divine rendezvous, you are not filling yourself up with the violence of your surroundings. Remember, violence is any time I do not fall into harmony with life, when I need conflict to understand or identify myself with any given thing. Harmony is the way. Watching your breath, just watching your breath go in and out, something that simple can be very meaningful to your life and change the way you deal with yourself for the rest of your life. I want to thank Sally and I want to thank Max. I am dedicating this particular program to Sally and Max. I have my reasons for it, and I want to thank them from the bottom of my heart for being on this planet. We'll be back next week. Please forgive me, won't you? Namaste. Master, I have sought all of my life for the secret of living. Do you know it?
Oh, I know that.
Please, Master, tell me the secret of life.
I couldn't do that.
Why not?
It's a secret.
So, if I make a generous donation to the ashram, will you tell me?
When pigs fly.
Oh, God. This is my audience. Folks, you want to know? This is my audience. This is what I play to every Sunday with you. Pack 'em in, Greg. Fabulous and fabulous.
So good.
I'm better than you are. I'm better than you are. Talking about your neighbor, talking about what they did, how you don't like them, what you thought they about. Okay, yeah, let's do it again. You're following me. I've been watching you following me. Don't you follow me like that. I don't know who you are.
Okay, ready?
Uh-huh.
And Greg's jokes really suck. They're awful.